Long before the world was forced to confront the horrors of the Holocaust, another movement had already begun, quietly, strategically, and with a dream that many considered impossible: the creation of a Jewish homeland. But did Zionism really begin before the Holocaust? And was it already laying the groundwork for the State of Israel, decades before 6 million Jews were murdered in Europe? The answer is more complex than you might think. The idea of a return to Zion, Jerusalem, Israel, has existed in Jewish prayers, poetry, and culture for over 2,000 years. For most of history, this longing was spiritual, not political. But by the late 19th century, the dream started to take a new form. In 1896, a Viennese journalist named Theodor Herzl published a small but radical book titled Der Judenstaat, the Jewish State. In it, he proposed that Jews were not just a religious group, but a nation without a state, and therefore, they deserved one of their own. For Herzl, anti-Semitism was not going to disappear. The only solution was self-determination. Just 1 year later, in 1897, Herzl organized the first Zionist Congress in Basel, Switzerland. Over 200 delegates gathered, representing Jewish communities across Europe. Their goal was clear: to establish a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. And right there, in the minutes of that first meeting, Herzl reportedly wrote in his diary, "In Basel, I founded the Jewish state. Perhaps not in 5 years, perhaps not in 50, but everyone will realize it." This wasn't just theory. By the early 1900s, Jewish settlers, motivated by Zionist ideals, had already begun immigrating to Ottoman-controlled Palestine. They bought land, built farms, formed collective communities called kibbutzim, and developed the Hebrew language from an ancient tongue into a modern, living language. They were not waiting for world sympathy. They were building a state from the ground up. So yes, Zionism existed long before the Holocaust. It had leaders, newspapers, funding, and even internal debates. Some Zionists wanted a secular state, others wanted religious law. Some proposed Uganda or Argentina as possible homelands, but the majority insisted on Palestine, the ancestral land of Jewish history. By 1917, the movement scored a massive diplomatic victory. In the midst of World War I, the British government issued the Balfour Declaration, stating support for the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people. The British Empire had just defeated the Ottomans in the region, and suddenly, the Zionist dream had a powerful patron. But this dream was not without consequences. Palestinians, who had lived on that land for generations, saw the influx of European Jews as a foreign colonization effort. Tensions grew. Riots erupted in the 1920s and 30s. The Zionist movement, once idealistic, had to start organizing militias to protect Jewish settlements. Groups like the Haganah and the Eden were formed, some of which would later become the backbone of the Israeli Defense Forces. Still, the world was not yet ready to accept a Jewish state. The British began limiting Jewish immigration to Palestine, especially as more Jews fled rising anti-Semitism in Nazi Germany. In a tragic twist of history, while Jews were being herded into ghettos and gas chambers, many were simultaneously being blocked from entering their potential homeland. Then came the Holocaust. Between 1941 and 1945, Nazi Germany orchestrated the systematic murder of 6 million Jews. The genocide not only shattered European Jewry, it shattered any illusions the world may have had about Jewish safety without sovereignty. Suddenly, what once seemed like a controversial political movement became a moral imperative. In the wake of Auschwitz, Treblinka, and Dachau, the Zionist case was no longer just a nationalist argument, it was a plea for survival. In 1947, the United Nations voted to partition Palestine into 2 states, one Jewish, one Arab. The Jews accepted. The Arabs rejected. And when Israel declared independence in 1948, 5 Arab nations immediately launched a war against the new state. But Israel survived. And the foundation for its survival had been laid long before the Holocaust, through decades of immigration, institution building, diplomacy, and yes, Zionist vision. So, was Zionism created because of the Holocaust? No. It was born long before. But the Holocaust gave it urgency. It silenced many critics. It forced the international community to reckon with the consequences of Jewish statelessness. And in that moment of horror, what had once seemed radical became undeniable. At TriviaTales, we believe history is really simple. The creation of Israel was not a reaction to one event, but the result of many decades of activism, diplomacy, violence, tragedy, and a dream that never died. The Holocaust did not create Zionism, but it made ignoring Zionism impossible.